All right. Good evening, everybody. So this week, lesson 5, part 2, right? Second week of lesson 5. So here we go with the group activity. It's a pirate translator. Now, the key is for this entire lesson not to use ard or ord or char, like CHR or ORD. Don't use them. Not in the book. It's not a solid way how to mess with strings or, leverage all the tools that are covered up till now in your book. It's important. So let's take a quick look. Let me open up a new file. And we'll get right into it. Dive right into this stuff, have some fun. Cool. Let's see, run the shell. Bring that over. So let's take a look at the actual exercise. So, talk like a pirate, English to pirate translator, globe becomes ahoy. Okay, all that fun stuff. Obey capitalization, add an R for fun, use all the tools, replaces your best friend. We're going to need this, right? So let's just start something new. Open up Notepad and see what we got here. Hello becomes ahoy. Well, we could do a couple things here, right? So in order to really make this more expedient, you could do things. We know we're going to use replace, right? And it's going to start with a period. We don't know what we're going to call it yet. We're going to replace something, right? So that's pretty easy because you could just do this to all the first lines. And this is a slow way to do it, but I just want to show some folks how to do some quick edits. Anything that ends in ing, we'll tag that for now. And so we have becomes. Well, becomes we could replace. Actually, we're going to replace space. Hey, Corey. Becomes space. And we're going to replace that with, I believe that'll work. Double quotes, comma, double quotes, replace all. How come that didn't work? Cannot find becomes. Let's just do space. Become space. There we go. Replace all. That was quick. That's going to end with a quote and a parenthesis. So some of these may not be in proper positioning, but that's pretty good. We could use this, right? I like that. We'll dump that right in some code. So we have that to start with. Well, one thing we need to ask for some input, right? What's the original message that you want to exchange, right? So we can call it user in, and later on we can go ahead and do the whole directions on welcome to the pirate translator. You're going to be asked to enter a phrase. These words will be changed. You can go ahead and make it feel like a real program later. But for now, input, what is the message to translate? Question mark, and we'll do a tab. So now we have that, user input. Well, I wanted to find a function right off the rip. We'll start using the things that we already dealt with, right? And we'll call it translate. I could deal with translate. We're going to give it a message because it's going to translate our message. And what's it going to do? Well, it's going to take all these, give it a space. So this is going to be message, but only for the first one. And that's what's going to replace. But it's going to be stored in new equals message. So now we're going to have this go down this entire line doing this. So this is a way to find each word and replace it and store it in new and update new. Maybe a problem with the and there because the is in there, but we'll deal with it when we're done. And it's going to return something. Well, it's going to return new. So we have user input, right? We're going to gather the input into user in. We're going to call on our translate function. Call on our translate function. But you guessed it, we're going to pass the user in. I don't like how this is designed yet. This is just a quick down and dirty, right? User in, and then it's going to run that. Well, it's going to return, when we call on translate with our user input, it's going to use user input as the message. It's going to return new, and we need to store new in something. So we'll call, let's see, we'll just say translated message. Give it the whole thing, right? Equals that. And then we'll print the translated message. We'll see how this works. Seems pretty cut and dry. Grab strings from people. We know in our head early off in this design that only certain words will be replaced. My friend, sir, where is the, there, you. We'll see how this goes real quick. Save. I'll save it as 2252 underscore. This is just me. Whiten underscore group 05. That's good enough for a test. Hit F5. What is the message you'd like to translate? Let's stick with Steve is my friend. So in theory, is my friend should be altered. Yep, Steve B.B. Bucko worked as designed. Is it perfect? Not at all. Right? Does it work quickly? Yes, it does. If you go through some more tests, you'll find out that does probably in the wrong area. These two probably have to be flip-flopped because they'll change there to TH, and then it'll look weird because you'll have an RE left. Now you could put a space here to fix that problem, right? That's one way to fix it. There's some different ways to think about this too. If words have IS in it, it might change to B. So you might want to lead with the space and end with the space. You can get really tricky with this and clean it up. It's not perfect. You'll never be giving perfect requirements to write any code or script. That's something very important to understand. That's where the critical thinking comes into play, right? Well, this is all said and good. We got our some stuff done, but let's make this more real, right? Let's go back to here. Let's say we have our header in here, right? And we have got to do our R still. So we'll import, let's see, what am I going to use from random? I don't know yet. I think I want to use range. Do a random range, pick a number between a random range. Let's just import the whole thing for now. Random. We'll import random. We're going to define a main function. We're going to slide this under our main function. No, well, the machine went to sleep. Hold on. Got too many things going on at once, right? I'll be right with you. There we go. And we'll move this back up to our main. Sort of cool. Not where we want to be yet, right? We could add more logic to this. We could say, let's see, we got translate. We already got translate here. Let's say, we'll just call this encode, even though it's not. While encode equals yes. Right, and now we could start to add logic to this. You could say while encode. I like not equal to no. Then we'll get into some let's do some try except stuff, right? Try except, we could put this right here. Cool. So I got our try except blocks built. Help do some error correction while we're here. And let's see, we got our try. So basically what this code will do, it'll try to perform these operations. If no errors happen, fine. If an error occur, our except statement will gather them. And here we want to potentially print out a phrase, right? Or just reprompt for the phrase. In this case, we could say just a quick print. Since we're catching all errors, we'll just say an error has occurred. Perfect, right? For now. If we misspell stuff, we'll fix along the way. Now, in theory, this should still work, right? Define main, all this fun stuff. We never called out main yet, which is we're going to do it right now with our if underscore name is equal to double underscore main. We'll call on main. Sweet, that should be it. Let's give it a whirl. Save it, hit F5. Here we go. So we're right here. What is the message to translate? I'm gonna use the same one for just keep it easy. Steve is my friend. Steve BB Bucko. So now you notice when we looked for is with the space and it added it back together, it removed them. Interesting, right? So do we have to do this now? Or do we have to leverage our print statement to change our spacing? So it's got my too, what I do. My. We'll try that. We'll do it again. There we go, cleaned up. What is the message to translate? So you notice while our while loop, we're stuck in our endless while loop, right? So how can we fix this? Well, right after the print translation, we could do you want to translate more words? We can, what do we call it? Encode, I believe. Yep. Call it encode. It says equal input. Continue, question mark. And we'll do this. Yes/no. And you could add lower and all kinds of fun stuff to this. /T. So now we're going to get encode back from the user, which now we have to do what to it? Now we have to test it, right? Well, let's see what this gets us. So this gets us an unexpected except or finally block. So it's in the wrong spot. I just have to tab it over. So we'll see where this gets us. Would you like to continue? Yes or no? I'm going to say no. No is saved in encode. While encode not equal to no, well, it is. Then it ends. Awesome. So this is a great start. When I say it's finished, no. We still we could add some things to never close, maintain the original. We could print out the original message and compare it to the new message. We can keep testing with different words and see where we break them and see what changes we have to make or may not make, right? Adding let's see, let's add a random R, right? So let's think about this. New is the message. We want to add an R no matter what. So let's just call it add R. Add R equals what? Well, we've got our random. I'll use random range here. And I'm going to start at 0 and stop at 10. And you'll see why. So I say if add R is equal to 1, sounds about right. If it's equal to 1 randomly, we're going to grab our new message. We're going to say new message equals R plus new. So if it randomly selects R, or if it randomly selects 1 from the range, it'll add R to the beginning. Well, that's cool. Let's do an else if. Else if add R is equal to 9, then we could do the same thing. Do it equals, except this time we'll do new plus space R. Well, it might be 2 spaces, but we'll see how that turns out. And then we'll return new. So let's save this at F5. Steve is my friend. And an error occurred. Well, what do you think happened there? What do you think happened along the way? Where did an error occur? What message would you like to translate? Steve is my friend. And then I got this right here. So something after this message broke. Translate user in. We didn't change anything. Oh yeah, we did. We changed this, didn't we? What could be wrong here? So now we have our, let's test it again, just to see where it broke. An error has occurred. What message would you like to translate? So we're stuck in our loop here. So we know it's breaking here. What could potentially be the cause here? Any ideas? Well, what if we just comment all this out, what we just added? Hit save. Unexpected indent. Got to remove our return. That works fine. So we know that there's something right here. It's breaking this stuff. We have our add R equals random.range. Random.range isn't a thing. How do I know? Well, it's rand range. Now, if we move this back to where we were, we have to return it after we do our changes. At 5, Steve is my friend. And now we have randomly selected 1, R, Steve, BB, Bucko, continue. Let's do yes. Let's do this again. And we still have the random 1. Well, why is always added random 1? Do we know why? We could do some low-level troubleshooting and print this out, right? So we should get something. And you can remove it. And there we go. Didn't happen. Nothing printed. I didn't really save it, so we didn't catch the print. But it selected something other than 1. So we hit random 1 twice in a row. No big deal. Let's save this and run it again just for fun. And you can dress this up. You could ask the user, so 9, added it to the end, working as designed. You could leave this here with a comment, left for testing, and you're good to go. Save it. It's pretty good. Does it deal with capitalized letters? No. How would we deal with capitalized letters? Well, user in, we could deal with it either in the translate or the right after user in. Luckily, there's a method for strings called starts with. So we know how to slice the first thing. So in order to get the S, we'd call on user in. Let's just pretend we're going to keep this the same thing, and we're going to create a new thing called a first letter. And first letter is going to equal user in with a slice of 0. And yeah, you're exactly right. You could do last letter. Last letter is going to be what? Well, so you could line them. That's fine. It's going to be user in, and you go -1. Read it from the back. And now I can print these. Your first letter is first letter, and last is last letter. Period. Save F5. Let's see how this goes. Stick with our Steve is my friend. So now you have your first letter is S, capital S, and your last is lowercase d. This is how you could check for, now you could pass your first letter off to see if it is cap or not. Is upper is a method of string. So you could check is upper, true or false, and then perform whatever you need to do that. You could also do that to your last letter. You could say is punctuation. Is equal to ing. You could say for each word in my message is equal to ing. Well, you remember how to delimit and turn a sentence into a list, right? It's one of the methods that was mentioned in our reading. So all the tools available to get real tricky with this are available to you in this lesson. And it's important that you practice each and every one and put them all into play, because eventually you'll need them all. If you're getting into data science, or if you're using some type of large data models, usually the data you receive is dirty. Well, what I mean by that is extra spaces, ending in punctuation, sloppily spaced, some commas, some odd things, and you'll have to write yourself a script to clean the data from that source. Makes sense. Instead of going through every time a Notepad or Word and changing it and saving it, then running more complex code against it, just write yourself a good script that cleans it 90% of the way, maybe more. Eventually it may have little things that change all the time that you'll have to, you could eventually build yourself a list and really fine tune your data set and clean your data before you even do anything to it. What I would call the master function, not necessarily master function, but the translate function here, I wouldn't pass any dirty data to the translate function. I would actually write another function up here called clean data. And clean data is where I would do my first and my last. I would do the translation to lower. I would do any changes that I would do to the original message. But what I would do is I always keep my original message. Here, I always keep it in user in. I pass user in to new. So I always have user in. I always have the original message. That's important to do, right? After all, it's the user inputting data. But this is a good start. I'd say this is a good 75% of the way. You got first letter, last letter. Of course, you got the method starts with, ends with. You could use that on these for your comparison operators. There'll be another function here. We'll just call it define clean data, and this will take a message as well. And I'll just pass it for now. But in reality, you could have clean data call out user in first, and then user in put out clean data or a clean message, and then your translate function use the clean message instead of message. So you can do all kinds of fun stuff with this. Yeah, like I said, this is about a 75% solution to the group exercise. I like it as a start. Yeah, it's about as far as I'll go into it. I'll let the groups, I'll let the individuals complete it. But don't use char or ord for this entire lesson. If you do, I'll just give you a 0. And I mean that because you're not helping yourself. You look on the internet for the fastest solution, and you think that that's going to help you with your group or your individual lab, and it won't. In that case, let's talk about the individual lab. Save. So the individual lab, let's take a look. So the individual lab is a Caesar cipher. Turn letters to numbers, integers. Well, a lot of you are like, oh, it's right here. Do not use, it's right in the directions. So if you do it, I already put it there. So too bad, don't. Well, let's take a look at this. A couple different ways you could go about this. It says to be wary of logic, punctuation, all kinds of stuff, right? Mainline functions, error handling. Encode, decode. Punctuation, I'll give you a little trick. I'll give you a little tip. It'll help. We'll do that now. File new. Drag this over. Come on. Come on. Okay, drag it. That's weird. There we go. So what we have here is a brand new blank document. Cool. And we have to use what we learned in this lesson to get integers. Well, that's easy. That's using find. Nothing more than find or replace, right? You could call something alpha equals space A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We'll start with that. The whole alphabet. Just type the whole alphabet there, right? And you could do punctuation equals, you could do punctuation if you want, or let me bring up the shell again. So let me start a clean shell. Where'd I pop it up at? There we go. So there is a module called string, or module. Import string. Within string, there's a method called punctuation. You hit enter. That's all the known punctuation, standard punctuation on a normal keyboard or Unicode punctuation. What you could do here is just call on punctuation. Just copy that. Dump that into that. Do test 4. Who cares, right? Oop, line string is not defined. Well, because I forgot to import string. Now I don't want everything from string, so I'll just say from string import. I always misspell this when I type punctuation. And we'll call it as punct, right? Call this punct list. We'll get rid of this. And we'll just call on punct. We'll see how this goes. Punct list. There we go. So now, when you grab your encode it, or your regular message before you encode it, you could do your ends with, grab your ends with -1, run it through a if function. If my last letter equals anything in punctuation or is in true or false, store that punctuation, use it later, put it back. Remove it from your original message. When you're done, put it back. Or if you want to change it, add punctuation to your alpha list. Now, this right here, if we say in, right, we get a true or false. So if we say is, let's just do this in the shell, alpha, right? And I'll say a in alpha, I get a true, okay? Well, if I use alpha dot find, and then I find a, it gives me back the index of 1. So why not use that index of 1, since it is in 0 as a space? So why not use that in my message? Add that to my new message, 1 space dash, or 1 dash, add a dash to it, right? Now, if you wanted to be a true Caesar cipher, you could ask for a key. And a key just being an integer. Give them 1 through 5. That way, when you call on alpha.find a in your string, it'll return you the integer of its indice of 1 plus your key of 5, just say 5. So your new value, your encoded value, will be a 6 for an A. And if you were to use B, it would be 2 plus 5 is 7. Get how it's encoded message? So you'd have you define an encode function that would take something, we'll call it message for fun. I'm not going to do it for you yet, right? And define a decode function, which will take a message as well, and then perform your decode. We see define your welcome. Define rules if you want. You already have your define play again from lesson 4. So now it's just a main function, right? And here's where you could grab your original message from the user, which would be input a message, right? And then you could pass that org to whatever you want. Now, remember, I highly suggest clean data, something like this, where clean data, potentially, it could find punctuation, find capital letters, find errors. And then it would return, let's see, new message. And then it would return new message to encode or decode. But in your main, it would be, would you like to encode or decode? Encode or decode, right? So this is a question. And then it's followed by a while you're encoding, perform your encode. If it equals encode, if encode, while encode, perform it. Else if equals decode, perform it. Else you did not enter encode or decode, right? So while, if encode, elif decode, else you did not enter encode or decode. Now this is rough pseudocoding, right? But you can go back and fill this in, and this will be your full code. I'm looking for something of this caliber, multiple functions, clean. Do not use char or ord. That's in the directions. You will receive a 0 for not reading the directions. I do not mind if you use punctuation from string. You could simply just hold down the shift key, and just run it across the top, of your keyboard, and you get that. That's most of it, but not all. And that's basic concepts of how you deal with the string for your individual lab. Sort of cut and dry. It takes a while to break this down in your mind and to really focus on the tools that are discussed in this lesson. If you can, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, if you could master the art of cleaning strings, joining them and creating a new message and outputting that to an audience, you can do it on any scale. So a single message, a single word, doesn't matter. You could do it to a book, a volume, event logs, an enterprise full of users, an enterprise worth of computers. This same methodology is used everywhere. Find replace is amazing. Think if Bank A buys Bank B, and everyone at Bank A has to change their email address to Bank B. There's a script that someone runs to grab their current email address and change it to their new one in Active Directory, or give it an alias, right? One of the two. Or a tenant in a cloud environment. It doesn't happen automatically. Someone has to do it, right? We're not there yet. But these tricks of the trade, breaking your ideas out into smaller pieces. Simple is best, right? Complex is better than complicated. That's where we're at. This is not that complex if you take each idea like I did. What do I have to do? Well, I have to run everything. So that's going to be my main function. Well, I have to get some data. Well, I'll do that in my main function. And then I'll pass it to clean data. And then depending on what it is, either encode or decode, I'll pass to those functions. I have my welcome function, the rules function, and when they're done, I'll ask them if they want to do it again. So if you break it down to these small ideas and sit here and actually type in what you need, this will be easy. This will be either in and find, perhaps use a key. And all I mean is by a key is ask the user or generate a random one, but give it to the user so they could use it to decode. So you could subtract the amount, right? And this could be the whole alphabet, and this could be the whole alphabet, right? You could follow it with lower and capital. You don't have to just grab a message, change it to all lower, then do it. That's one way to do it. But you can add the entire alphabet, lower and capital. You could throw a space in there either at the beginning. I don't care where you put your space, honestly. Let's see what else. You could throw punctuation in here too if you want. It's up to you. I like having the punctuation as a separate thing, so I could run a separate logic statement against it to be true or false or yes or no, right? But it ain't that bad. It really ain't that bad. It does look a lot like what we just did over here. Like this whole beginning, you can use the whole, well, encode equals no. You could use this whole thing. That's why I chose that word. You can use a lot of this similar concepts in this code. I just showed you in two different ways. And you can also use replace in this. Replace an A with a 2 or whatever. But that's not always accurate. It's not always the fun way to do it. I really suggest you use find and in. and find gives you back the index, and you could just use that as your numeric code. But that's it for me beating up the group exercise. Like I said, 75% over here. There's a lot more we could do, especially with for each letter. You guys, you remember how to turn a string into a list? Corey, you remember? I'm picking at it because you're the one here. How would I turn that into a list? What method in this lesson takes these and gives you back a list? Remember? I'll open up the file just in case. I think it's this one. We'll see. Think about it. Split do the trick. Let's say new message equals, now we're going to call the object we want to split, which is our message. We're going to call it on split, or we're just going to split on nothing. We're going to hit enter. I'm going to call it my new mess, and now I have a list. So you can do, now this is the part where everyone tells me I don't know how to find ing, I don't know how to find this, I don't know how to find that. Well, I'm showing you. Yeah, no worries, Corey. It's a lot to remember. Now you could write a for statement saying for each word in new message, and here is where you could say word end with, and you can check it if it ends with a G, and if it ends with a G, you could see if the next one ends with an N and an I, or check it all together. -3, grab the last 3. Won't work with is, right? Stuff like that. But here you could write your check to say if ends with ing, or if you had to check with ing. So you could check each individual word, if it's capital, if it's someone's name, right? For each word in new message, you could do a is capital, is upper, contains ing. You could do whatever you want and save those in this logic. So split may be your good friend here to do some type of data cleaning or data validation. What else do you have? Find is a huge one. It's going to give you back the indices, so you might as well just use that as your hidden code because it won't change. You see what I mean? If you say find A in alpha, it gives you back a 1. So now your message is like 1 dash whatever. When you go to decode it, you could say, what's in indice 1? Well, A. So now you can call on alpha indice 1. Here, I'll cancel this. And you call it indice 1, you get A back. So that's how I would use find and indices, calling on my alpha, my string list, to do my encode and decode. Pretty cool stuff. And there's other ways to do it in Python. There's a million ways to do it, but focus on mastering these simple fundamental tools. That's this whole course. You will not understand how to do more complex things in Python if you don't understand these. I know that may blow someone's mind, but there's other things that I'll show you next week that Python has to make these jobs kind of easier. But before you use them, you kind of need to know how they operate. You have to read the manual or understand the fundamentals. That's all I have for tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.